As you get ready to celebrate our nation's independence with a bang, experts are warning next year's party could be a lot less spectacular thanks to tariffs. Let's connect the dots. President Trump has threatened to impose more tariffs on Chinese goods as the trade war continues, and professional and consumer fireworks are on that list. This year's celebrations are safe, but the people behind some of the biggest July 4th celebrations warn next year could be a very different story. Higher prices could mean shorter or canceled events as companies try to deal with getting less bang for their buck. One of the biggest groups concerned? Nonprofits who sell fireworks every year to raise money. For people not familiar with the history of making things go bang, fireworks were invented in China, and according to experts, it's hard to produce them outside the country. But there is hope for all those sparkler lovers out there. Trade talks between the U.S. and China are expected to restart soon. Connecting the dots, I'm Marcelino Benito for H-Town Rush.
All right, thanks.